Okay, so they're selling. So the bigger companies are getting the bailouts basically, and then they're taking their bailout money or the subsidy money, and
That's right.
they're buying out the little guy that is not getting anything, and is saying, screw this. I'm just struggling all the time. Tired of it.
That is a lot of it.
Okay.
Now, let me give you an example of how government drives this. In the there was a bill that provided emergency relief to farmers that was passed in December of 24, and then the big beautiful bill that was passed a few months ago. In those bills, they discriminate against farmers that make 74% or less of their income off of the farm. If you make 75% or more of your income off your farm operation, then you get higher payments, or in the big beautiful bill, there's not any income cap. If you make 74% of your income, so if you've gone to town, one of the members of the family has gone to town to get a job to help maybe access health care, to help sustain the family, you now, government, the leadership in Congress has decided you deserve less.
Oh, jeez.
So it is a conscious decision to do this. It is written into the law to help the biggest ones over the smaller, mid-sized ones. And the landscape of America is changing, and it's hurting the health of America.
Yeah.
And it's hurting the vitality of our rural communities.
So these bigger farms, when they come along and they're like, "We want to buy your land," and they buy the farm, what are they? What are they doing with the land? I mean, they're obviously, are they converting it away from growing food? Is this why we're seeing the loss of food, and instead we're seeing an import of food? When they buy these farms, have they been historically transitioning them into feed farms rather than actual food farms?
Yeah, their mindset is soybeans and corn rotation, mostly, throughout the Midwest. The concept is that we've got the whole thing is a big loop, like I described before. So the big grain traders make a lot of money the more crop there is. The lobbying organizations get something called checkoff money. Farmers all have to pay in. Every time we sell something, we have to pay a lug that goes into a pot of money at the federal government. And unfortunately, it winds up in the hands of trade and lobbying groups that represent the industry, the big ag, and they go to town. And so the programs drive corn, soybean production, feed grains and fuel grains, export. And those farmers buy up another tract of land, tear out any fences. If it was a diversified farm, animals on the land, tear out all the fences and plant fence row to fence row, as we used to say. Now it's ditch to ditch because they tear out the fences. And it's just row after row of industrial, heavy chemical laden, heavy fertilized corn, soybean rotation. That is the bulk of the heartland, has been determined as the heartland over years of the Midwest agriculture production. And that's what the bigger farmers do. 3,000 acres isn't enough. They go buy out another 1,000. They just
convert it out to feed
corn, soybeans, spraying it with glyphosate, kill down weeds, and that's a big story. And it's driven, as I've already described, specifically pointed to two instances. It's driven by government policy choices to support that industrial agricultural model heavily dependent upon export.
Yeah.
It is the model that we have. The more we raise, the more those lobbying groups get of checkoff funds. So if I get an extra bushel of soybeans or plant another acre, those folks love it because they get paychecks coming off of more acres. There's not an incentive of the big trade and lobbying groups like the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, the National Pork Producers Council, the Soybean Association. There's not a motivation for those associations to they're representing their interest. I'm not, but we need to realize what their interest is. Their interest is raise more corn, soybeans, for cheap feed and for export.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a big problem. So I see the problem. I think we now really understand this problem. Thank you for explaining that. And now, is there any program? Is the government discussing anything to? I mean, it seems like now there's an opportunity. So it seems like there's an opportunity that if China's not buying our soybeans anymore because they've just said, you know what, we got a new client, it's Brazil. So, and we're not, and that's why China, I mean, with the trade war, this current tariff war, China's just said, we're not even, they didn't even answer the phone this last time. I mean, the White House called and they didn't even answer the phone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're like, we don't need you. We're totally not interested in any of this. You want to do a trade war, that's on you. We have other clients. We have other places to go. We don't really care. Like, good luck to you. And that's their attitude. And that's caused Trump to have to fold over and over and over again on this. So you're right. It's not working because it's a world market. They just go somewhere else. But it seems like this is an opportunity to where the government could say, oh, shit. Like, maybe what we should do instead is, I mean, these farmers there's no point in growing soybeans anymore, guys. I mean, not above and beyond what we need for our own farms. There's no incentive to do this anymore. So you're just going to have to convert the farms. The question then is, a couple of questions on that. Could they convert the farms? You've mentioned chemicals being sprayed, lots of fertilizer. Is this land even good anymore? Maybe they could pump it full I don't know what they can do to put nutrients back into it. We need whatever. I mean, is the land even usable for food? And then secondly, then obviously we'd have to convert a lot of our import-export with our own food. That is going to have a ripple effect. I mean, the countries that we're buying all the cucumbers from are suddenly going to feel it if we're not buying cucumbers anymore either, right? So there is kind of a ripple effect on these other countries. I mean, what do you think the challenges are to converting that land? Or are they just not even thinking about that right now? Are they just still thinking, no, we're going to go back to the good old days and sell the soybeans to China and everything's going to be fine? So they're not even thinking about, guys, like maybe we should start feeding Americans.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm a farmer, and I'm living through all of these crises that are coming through and this uncertainty. But I will tell you, I've never been more excited. Exactly for why this is the prime time to begin to have conversations like this, to describe the problem and to start moving the solutions. Are they thinking about it in Washington, D.C.? No, because they're bogged down with the big trade and lobbying lobbyists, and they are still trying to, they're talking about another bailout. But it starts here. It starts with the people. Yeah. That's why we're out there talking about solutions. Is the soil, you ask this, is the soil worthy of raising our food? Many acres are not today, but it can be converted. Switching, one of the things we're focusing on and looking at is focusing back on conservation dollars that allow to build soil health again. Mm-hmm. Build that soil health so that it can produce, and it is less reliant upon synthesized type fertilizers. Rotation, there's lots of studies, additional rotational crop, not just a 2-crop rotation of corn and soybeans, but putting in legumes or grasses and other things, builds soil health and reduces the need of chemicals, pesticides and herbicides. So there's a lot of great research that's been done. So there is a path forward, and now is the time to start having the conversation, and that's what we're doing. We're excited at Farm Action to have this opportunity because it's the perfect storm for the farmer. They've got to begin looking around. Yeah. And Washington, D.C. can't keep dipping in and handing out $15 to $28 billion, $30 billion every 6 months to prop up a failed agriculture system. We do have a few folks listening to us on the Hill, and we're spreading the word, and we're excited. We're excited during the time of crisis.
It's clear this is going to take people because the problem is the lobbies, like you said. I mean, if they're on Capitol Hill saying we got to, because you know what they're doing right now, right? They're pushing for more subsidies, more bailouts for the soy and corn farmers, right? That's what they're doing. And they're probably also thinking, well, shoot, because obviously it gets ridiculous. Like you can't just, if China has just moved on and they're not going to buy the soy anymore, then you're just going to end up with piles of soybeans and they're rotting. I mean, they're just going to be sitting there going to waste, right? So what they're also trying to think of is, well, what else could we do with the soybeans, right? Like they're not, instead of thinking, well, let's convert the land and grow something else. They're sitting there thinking, what can we do with the soybeans? And so we're all going to be eating like, pretty soon our cars are going to be run. I mean, it's going to be like, they're going to try to figure out all these weird things to do with soy, right? We're going to be we're going to be eating soy everything, but people won't want to do that. I mean, Americans are waking up. Thank goodness with the Maha movement, right? There is this.
That's right.
People are starting to say, wait a minute, I don't want to eat all this genetically modified stuff. I don't want all these chemicals. I don't want all this. So I don't know if that's going to them trying to convert the soy into something else. I don't know if that's really going to work. So you know that's what they're doing. That's what they're paid to do. There's no money in them lobbying to suddenly transition this farmland into growing tomatoes and cucumbers, right?
That's right.
So this will require, like the Maha movement people, right? It is part of the Maha, I would imagine. I don't know if you're affiliated or if you like the Maha movement or if you care about it. I'm not sure what your position is on that. But like that movement, or this maybe even is a part of it, it's going to require demand by the population, the people saying, we've had enough of all this, and this is what we demand, and we're not going to vote for you unless you make this part of your platform. And that was a big thing, like vaccines and other things, like during the Maha rage, to help get Trump elected. So it seems like the more movement we could get people to say, then the more awareness, like what you're talking about. I mean, this clearly we need people aware. We're importing our cucumbers and our tomatoes and we're importing all of our food. That just sounds terrible, even if you're importing it from, like I said, a couple of states away, let alone foreign countries entirely, and what has gone on with the food supply in order to get it here and still make it look like food, right? Still make it look edible. So then let's talk about that. Is this part of Maha at all? Is anyone in the Maha movement in Washington, D.C. talking about this?
They are. And we're proud to be working with some of the Maha movement leaders. We're where you are. We got to get the people informed, and it's going to take people. There's no incentive on the part of the lobbyists to make a change. That's how they make their money. If we can't, some folks talk about, well, we'll change. No, they make more money when they raise more soybeans, and they're going to do the best they can to find other uses for soybeans. Right. So it's our job. It's our job to raise the awareness and make the demands with the public's voice. And we're proud to be working with Maha. We have a citizen petition right now. We focused on 7 issues that we believe Secretary Rollins, the USDA Secretary, United States Department of Agriculture Secretary, can take and should begin to support as they're thinking about a bailout. None of us should support a bailout that only meets the crisis of a trade war with China. There are farmers like your family and others that are struggling to stay on the farm, that's trying to raise healthy foods, that's trying to feed their neighbors, and they're in financial harm's way just as much. Our soil has been depleted. We're calling on them to focus on conservation now. Our children are eating ultra-processed foods that's killing them in their schools. This administration has cut those programs. We're calling on them to find a way to let's work with local farmers for school lunches and for other centers. Let's work together. For the Democrats that have been championing on these issues for decades, we're saying let's find common ground. Yeah. This is not a Democrat issue or a Republican issue. Democrats have been champions on healthy foods. But because of some of the Maha politicization across the board, people don't want to talk. We're encouraging people, let's talk. Let's find that common ground, because together we can change this food system. This is the best opportunity I've had in my lifetime of advocacy to be able to move the needle. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it's on the backs of some of my friends who are soybean farmers. I don't blame them. They followed the dollars that they had to keep their farms, and they're in harm's way. They do need bailout money. We're not suggesting, not looking at helping them, but let's do more. Let's begin this transition plan. Like
maybe the bailout should be, okay, we're going to give you money to sustain, but we're also going to give you money to convert your farm.
Right. Or we're going to start backing off of that support. We're not going to overnight start raising enough cucumbers. I'm just using cucumbers and tomatoes here. Right. But we're not going to do that. So it's going to take a transition period. So we need to focus with those farmers and help them transition. And they need the government support, risk management tools, crop insurance that supports production of produce and fruits, just like they had with corn and soybean. That's how you get the money from the bank. The bank wants to know if the government's going to give you a risk management tool like crop insurance. And if the government's crop insurance doesn't work for a crop, they say, well, you can go do that if you want, but we want the risk management. If you have a crop failure, we need to know you can pay the bank.
Right.
So we've got to transition those programs to allow those farmers to transition.
And you think that there is the ability to do that? I mean, it's one thing, right? Like, we can't just leave them stranded and say, well, we don't want to grow soybeans anymore. Sorry, guys, you need to start growing cucumbers. There's clearly got to be a transition there. And you see that there is. And so rather, some people might have the mentality of, oh, well, it's your fault. You started growing soybeans, you're just going to have to. Yep. But that's not. That's only going to cause people to fight to keep the current system the way that it is. That's not going to get them on our side to transition them and transition the farms to feeding America healthy food, right? That's just going to make them dig their heels in and say, well, no, I'm going to keep on. We just have to keep going in the current system because you're not even offering me, you're telling me to fail and to just fail and die. And that's not a solution for people. So you do see that there is a path, though, in your mind and your advocacy. There's a path for these farmers, your friends, who are the soybean farmers, to convert out of that in a way that's not going to bankrupt them, in a way that's not going to make their family starve. Like, do you see a path for that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that it does take people engaging. It takes the right attitude. You described it. There are those that would say, well, you supported Trump as a farmer. You deserve what you're going to get. There's all kinds of narratives out there that we're managing through. And hoping that we can help people find common ground. And we feel there's not much of a choice for these farmers. There's not much a choice for America. We're going to have a $47 billion record agricultural trade deficit. $47 billion. It's the third time commodity crop growers have come into this will be the third time in 12 months needing a bailout. It's not sustainable. Eventually, we believe we can convince the Congress it's not sustainable and to begin look at pathways forward to change the crisis that we have. And that's why we're working with MAHA and their leaders and issuing out a citizen petition to really get the individuals' voices into Washington, D.C.
Okay, so let's talk about the points of this petition and what you're wanting to change. So the petition is we have the link down below for anybody, sign the petition. Tell Secretary Rollins and the USDA to promote healthy food and protect America's farmers. So you say that there's 7 points. You kind of hit on 2 of them, saying that one of the first points being restore conservation staff and funding to protect soil and water. Go into that a little bit deeper. What do you mean?
Yeah. Well, we talked about it. Is the soil healthy enough if we transition it? The answer is no. A lot of the soil health is in bad shape, and it requires heavy application of chemicals, whether that's the fertilizers or the pesticides. So conservation and programs that would be focused towards growing the health of that land would allow us to lower the need for pesticides, the lower the use of chemicals, and prepare that land so they can raise healthy foods for Americans. The current administration has been backing off of those expenditures. We're calling on Secretary Rollins to recognize the need to do that. And so that's one of the calls in that petition.
How long does it take to make soil healthy again?
Well, the very first year you see a gain, but it can take years. Mm. And then it has to be maintained. Mm-hmm. But I remember on our farm when we started moving towards it, I remember when I know this is just anecdotal, but this is me. So we started trying to pull away from the industrial-based heavy pesticides. And so we started backing away from that, doing other techniques. And one day, when I was a kid growing up, there were these crawdad holes all over our farm. We live on a flat. It's very wet. I remember seeing the first crawdad back on our farm. So, I mean, it's little signs like that. It was only a couple of years Uh, so, it takes longer, but I'm just saying you can restore it. I gave you an antidote, but research shows it begins the first year, the minute you put that organic matter in there and begin a
Yeah.
rotational system.
Okay. Second point on here is support organic and regenerative agriculture to reduce the toxic load in children's food. So supporting organic.
And we think it's a great time right now. If we're going to raise food, we ought to raise it as clean and healthy as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Organic production provides a chemical-free, a non-toxic food for our children. We're really focusing on school lunches and those type of programs. We are encouraging the Secretary to invest in the transition of farmland into organic production. We have a farmer in our network, Kevin Fulton, that puts on a program and shows how he makes more money raising corn and soybeans organic on his farm than does his commercial folks. So it also is about transferring even maybe some corn and soybean acres, not just food crops, but lowering the need for pesticides, lowering the toxic impact of industrial agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a 3-year period to transition a farm to organics.
Okay. That's not very long, actually. 3 years goes in a flash.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does.
Restore the $1 billion cut from local food infrastructure programs that children and families rely on for a healthy diet. Tell us about that.
Well, this is extremely important to understand, and it's about procurement. There's a couple of points on procurement in our request, and I think it's important for people to understand it. Right now, because of the heavy concentration on the buyer side of retail grocery and the big food companies, it's hard to get the infrastructure to convert to healthy foods, fruits and vegetables in this country, to rebuild the infrastructure to deliver the stuff, to store it, to deliver it. One way to anchor that investment, to encourage farmers to do it, is for government to buy their healthy foods they're raising and pull that into our schools to help our children. So there's a link in sustaining small, mid-sized farmers in the production of food, and it's linked directly to the health of our children. And procurement, unfortunately, Secretary Rollins cut that $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And we're encouraging them to restore it. We got it under the Biden administration, and Rollins cut it.
Why would Rollins cut it? I mean, I thought that. Now, I know that she was not the pick for Maha. I don't think that they really wanted Rollins. I think they wanted somebody else. But why would she cut that, especially when we've got a Maha administration?
Well, it was in the beginning days of the administration with Doge, and I think everybody was looking for cutting and putting money on the table to show they did their job. I don't think she's opposed. She put $18 million into a new program that would be local purchasing, a long way from $1 billion. But so I think that we need her to step back and understand the billion she's about ready to hand out to farmers to bail them out for a trade war is billion. She could find $1 billion and restore this and provide health for our children and markets for our food growing farmers.
So when you say that we have an infrastructure problem of getting the organic food to the local markets, to the supermarkets, what exactly is the challenge? Just so I can understand it.
Okay, so this country moved globally on its exports. It also moved globally on food production, big food companies, big processing, and along the way, sweetheart deals to just specific distributors of food, whether that's the institutional-based foods to our universities, or whether that's the contracts given out by the federal government. So you got a handful of companies that have the contracts to distribute food out of a processor to government entities. They like doing business with their big industrial ultra-processed food buddies, and so sometimes we can't get healthy foods into their trucks, into their distribution system. So we've lost, because of the years of neglect on raising food. We don't have the old large markets in our cities and smaller trucks that took the produce around and delivered. We have to build that infrastructure. It costs money. having a government contract guarantees at least some income, encourages you to go ahead and build that infrastructure.
Okay. So you're saying that the current infrastructure, because we've transitioned to importing all of our food from everywhere, all those cucumbers and peppers, that they're not built. The infrastructure is no longer built to deliver from the smaller organic farm to like the grocery store. It's just not really, the infrastructure is not there for the distribution.
That's right. The infrastructure, that infrastructure has gone, and it has to be restored, and we need contracts. Government can help through procurement to encourage folks to begin to build that infrastructure back out. That's why it will take time. We won't snap our fingers. We're not suggesting snap our fingers and suddenly don't buy any tomatoes from Mexico or China.
Right. Well, and it makes sense. I mean, the current infrastructure, they're probably like, well, we store all the food over here and it sits there for a while. And so we wouldn't get your organic food to the store fast enough before it rots because it's not laden with a bunch of chemicals. And we only can distribute food with a bunch of chemicals because we have to store it, or we've got these particular trucks, or we've got this particular infrastructure, and we're just not built to like store your food that isn't going to rot, that is going to rot in a matter of days because it's actual real food. Okay.
We haven't sprayed it down to preserve it or coated it with something, then we don't, the big folks don't know. They
don't know what to do.
It's a world. They don't know what to do. Yeah. They're not set up for it. And we've lost because of the emphasis on big agriculture and shifting away from producing our food. Those small businesses went broke. Nobody was raising their stuff, and they just went out of business. We've got to help build that back.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if your cucumber can last for, and it is, I live part of the time in Europe, and it's like the difference, I have to grocery shop regularly in Europe compared to over here in Italy. I have to grocery shop regularly. Here, I could load up and the groceries last forever, and it freaks me out a bit because over there, it's like the food rots in a day or two. The cucumbers are rotten within a day. Here, it's like, it'll last in the fridge for a couple of weeks. I mean, that's what you're saying. That infrastructure isn't built to like quickly move the product where it needs to go so that people can buy it before the stuff rots. Okay. Yeah. So that's what we need. Yeah. That makes sense. Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.